Ohayo gozaimasu, watashi wa Berk desu. Channel ni yokoso. And given how Chainsawman is currently killing it at the box office, hi there. You may notice something about this video and what I just said. I said that recently Chainsaw Man has been in the theater. Well, given that it's currently December, I should probably explain. You see, I am kind of bad with deadlines. This was originally supposed to come out around Halloween, but due to general depression and an unwavering desire to do nothing but play Cyberpunk 2077 to avoid the crushing reality that exists, I didn't get around to editing this video for 2 months. But it's edited now, and therefore it results in me editing Berk, jumping in here to tell you why the hell I said it had recently been out. My bad. I was thinking about Fujimoto's other work, and today I want to talk about one of my absolute favorite one-shots I have ever read from one of my favorite authors. You've seen the title. I'm talking about Tatsuki Fujimoto's heartbreakingly brilliant one-shot, Look Back. Look Back is what happens when the id meets the superego and they become friends, with no ego to mediate them. Truly a story of the two sides of Fujimoto-sensei's brain shaking hands and giving a hearty how do you do. On the surface, this is a story about two artists building, then destroying their professional and personal relationship, before a horrific incident ensures neither can be reconciled. But the truth of the story is so much deeper than that. This is what happens when the creative process becomes your whole identity, leaving no room for that artistic side to persist and hold true, resulting in one of the best death of the author stories in the history of modern manga, in my opinion. For those of you that don't have any idea what a one-shot is and have just listened to me say words at you for the past 40 seconds or so probably, a one-shot usually entails either an early work of a mangaka as they were getting their foot in the door of the manga world while attempting to get serialized, or a major spin-off of their main franchise that is usually half to a full arc, but there's no time to focus on it in the main manga, so they do it in a spin-off, or a one-shot. Sort of like how anime movies tend to be fully self-contained stories that aren't required watching for the main series to make sense. Like, most of the One Piece movies, for example. You don't really need to watch those to know what the hell is happening in One Piece, but they're fun supplemental information. I think the most fascinating thing about Fujimoto-sensei's biggest one-shots of note, Goodbye Eri and Look Back, is that these books were actually written while he was being serialized with Chainsaw Man, and they have nothing to do with his main works. They're both fully contained stories that are decidedly rooted in reality, unlike his other works that are far more in the step of a step removed from the real world. Look Back and Goodbye Eri are very real and down-to-earth stories about the true struggles that come from being a creative, and simply what it means to be an artist in this day and age. Now, for those uninitiated, I'ma run through the story. If you've read it or watched it, skip forward to this point because, hey, I'm just giving you information that you already know at this point. There's no point in you reading or watching this part, eh? But if you haven't, and, you've clicked on my stupid video because you're like, I want to see what weird anime stuff's on at the moment, or I've, used that algorithm to get the Chainsaw Man fans here. Hi, how you doing? Skip forward to this point, or just look at the time down below. Look at the time bit down below. It will, there will be a thing to be like, hey, skip here. But I'ma talk about the story for a brief second, and give a rundown of the plot for anyone who doesn't know what the hell is happening. So, hey, I'll see you shortly. Say hi when you come back to the video. The one-shot opens in the 4th grade classroom of one of the two main characters as the class newspaper is being handed out and everyone is laughing and guffawing at the newest 4-panel manga found inside. A short story called First Kiss that depicts what happens when you don't think about the true consequences of reincarnation. As they read, the students turn and tell the young author, Fujino, how much they loved it, and we see her try and play it cool, but clearly she's loving the attention she is getting from her classmates. After class, Fujino's teacher asks her if she would mind relinquishing one of the manga slots in the newspaper to a fellow student, a young student named Kyomoto, a truant child who wants to try drawing manga. Thinking it would help elevate her work to be placed next to an amateur and show what an amazing artist she is, Fujino agrees, but has a very rude awakening when she realizes her ability pales in comparison to the realistic mini-portraits drawn by the absentee artist. Heartbroken and no small amount of embarrassed, Fujino decides to throw herself into her art, learning how to become a better artist and storyteller, buying every single book she can find on the subject, filling sketchpad after sketchpad, and resulting in many of her friends being pushed away, and Fujino totally isolating herself in her room, avoiding anything that wasn't drawing manga. We see by the time she's in the 6th grade, her art has indeed progressed, but unfortunately for her, so has Kyomoto's. And in the face of the evident gap in their abilities, Fujino decides to quit drawing altogether. Fast forward to their graduation, and because they technically worked on the newspaper together, their teacher asks if Fujino could deliver Kyomoto's diploma to her home, and in spite of her protests and really not wanting to do it, Fujino agrees to do so. While delivering said diploma, she finds a very stark home with piles of art books that dwarfed her own collection, and a closed door. Realizing that Kyomoto is a total shut-in, or hikikomori in Japanese, Fujino uses a scrap of paper she spots to draw her first 4-panel manga in a very long time about Kyomoto's situation, which gets grabbed by the wind and slips under the door, and ultimately is the reason Kyomoto leaves her room and the pair actually meet. Kyomoto revealing that Fujino is her inspiration and why she wanted to start doing the student newspaper manga in the first place. This chance meeting quickly grew into a close connection as they both worked on this manga together, Fujino doing the story and characters and Kyomoto doing all the background work and scenery. The final piece, named Metal Parade, wins first prize and nets the pair 1 million yen in prize money. This leads to the pair doing numerous one-shots together until their individual desires separated their future for good. After many one-shots, they ended up getting serialized. But just as they do, Kyomoto works up the courage to tell Fujino that she wants to go to art school, leading to a total disillusion of both their friendship and their professional working together. With Kyomoto going to Yamagata Prefecture Art College, and Fujino going on to be serialized with her new creation, Shark Kick. But sadly, for one of our heroines, her story comes to an end here. While working on her most recent chapter, Fujino sees on the news that there has been an attack at the art school by a deranged man wielding some kind of weapon. Fearing for her former friend's safety, Fujino tries to call Kyomoto. And when there is no answer, her worst fears are confirmed when her mother calls her to say Kyomoto had indeed been a victim of this madman. Heartbroken, Shark Kick goes on hiatus, and Fujino returns to the small town where the pair grew up, to the house where they first met, and finds herself outside the door that had separated them that fateful day that they met. Fujino just so happens to find that same 4-panel manga that led to the pair meeting for the first time, and in a fit of rage and guilt over the death of her closest friend, destroys it, with the first panel slipping under the door And suddenly, we are transported back to that day they met, but with things going a little bit different than what we first experienced. This time, Kyomoto doesn't rush out to talk to Fujino. Instead, she sneaks out once Fujino had left, and returns to drawing, and ultimately does follow the same path that she did prior, just without any of the working with her friend. Falling in love with the bigger picture, pun intended, and ultimately going to art school. Eventually being in the exact same situation we heard about. Only this time, we get to see this poor girl stuck between a deranged psycho with a pickaxe and a hard place. However, this time, an unexpected person saves her. A sweatsuit-clad Fujino, who happened to be jogging past on her morning run from her dojo, knocks the man down with a shark-sized kick and saves Kyomoto, ultimately breaking her own leg in the process. The pair speak as Fujino is getting loaded into the ambulance, and they start back down the path of creating manga together, only this time as well-adjusted adults. Feeling nostalgic, Kyomoto looks through her cuttings of those old 4-panel manga from their school days, and actually writes a brand new one in honor of her savior, only for the wind to do its thing and take it from her grasp, slip it under the door, right to the feet of the grieving Fujino, who, thinking her friend must still be in there, bursts through the door, only to find an empty room, save for a number of 4-panel manga taped to the window, the happy jacket that Fujino had signed the day that they met, and Kyomoto's own personal collection of Shark Kick. After a number of hours sobbing, Fujino returns to the office, tapes that 4-panel manga she found to her window right in front of her desk, and returns to work on her manga, just as she did for all those years, driven, but now truly alone. And welcome back to all the people that skipped forward because you already know the story. Hi, how are you? What did you do? Did you go get a cup of tea? A cup of coffee maybe? Maybe a snack? Let me know what you did down in the comments, because I'm intrigued to find out what you went and did, instead of listening to my dumbass ramble. Now, you may have caught on to a not-so-subtle fact about this manga, that the names of our two protagonists were not chosen by sheer happenstance or by mistake. When you combine the names of the characters, you get the name of the man himself, Fujimoto. But what does that mean? Well, I think it's more than just a fun little joke, or making it, tangentially about himself like some mangaka like to do. Some mangaka like to throw a little nod to themselves in their works. I think that this whole one-shot, I think it says a lot about Fujimoto sensei, a lot more than actually meets the eye. I think, if anything, it's almost like we've got Fujimoto down on our own little psychologist sofa, and we're asking him some questions. You see, I mentioned earlier, I think that this is a case of Fujimoto sensei showing the two sides of his brain as two different characters, and it's actually a rather scathing indictment of the whole manga industry, and the hatred that he can sometimes personally feel toward being a mangaka, contrasted with the true love he has for his role at the same time. Even if it is a very absurdist, very art house, and obviously very exaggerated view of that fact. Under this thought process, Fujino is all of Fujimoto's cynicism, all of his anger at his inability to create to the level he wants, his desire to be as good if not better than his peers, and general hatred toward being a mangaka that ultimately settles into the rhythm of the weekly Shonen Jump routine. Even when something like your inspiration passes away and you want nothing more than the world to swallow you whole and for the world to forget you, the deadline still looms. something that I don't have a problem with deadlines. I'd never. I'm not rushing the creation of this video. I'm great with deadlines. And Kyomoto is all of Fujimoto's creativity. The joy he feels when creating and in the zone. The desire for perfection and his love of his work, with less focus on the making money or meeting deadlines, but the joy of art and drawing. The side of him that wishes he could maybe step away from the manga world and just be an artist. Never having to worry about what is Denji gonna do in the next chapter, or when Power will return, because she better return, or I will not be a happy PNG. I want her back. I want my Powie back. I love Power. She's my favorite character. Fujimoto, bring her back, goddammit. Art is the sole focus. And the spiritual fulfillment? Well, that's payment enough. And this isn't outside of the realm of his wheelhouse. This isn't the first extremely meta one-shot written by Fujimoto-sensei. As I mentioned, his other one-shot, Psychoanalaysing, as it's known in Japan, is about what it means to simply create. To make something for the sake of making something, with no real aim or goal, and just seeing where the narrative of let's make something takes you. And it's equally as weird as Look Back, including its own kind of weird, very pseudo-time travel-y moments. It seems to be something that Fujimoto-sensei may sort of hyper-focus on. He may be a person that, not unlike myself, has sort of an obsession with sitting and thinking about moments he really wishes he could go back and change. Times he wish he could have one more bite at the apple, because he'd do something different a second time round. A theme that persists in Look Back. The desire to change one small moment and allow a butterfly effect's worth of change. Something that is, as we all know, heartbreakingly impossible. And Fujino realizes that at the culmination of this story. As I said, this looks like and feels like both one big love letter and a loathe letter to the manga industry and the creative process on the whole. It's almost like Look Back is saying to be successful, you have to sacrifice that which makes you an artist. And most importantly, your happiness. And to be good at art, you must forego any hope of being recognized for your creation in real time. With the truth, I think, lying somewhere in between those two mindsets. But we can see this viewpoint become reality everywhere in the industry. Just look at Junji Ito and Hayao Miyazaki as prime examples of this fact. Miyazaki-sensei has made some of the most beautiful, breathtaking pieces of art known to anime. Even my mother, who doesn't know the first thing about anime, even though she really does try her hardest for my sake whenever I go and see my parents. She tries, she really does. I love her, she does try. But she knows who Miyazaki is. And he's one of the most depressed men in the industry because his art is never perfect. It could always be better. There's more he can work on. He can't ever take a moment to rest because he always wants to be creating. Whereas Ito-sensei makes some of the most batshit Looney Tunes manga that at some point they just stop being art altogether and transcend simply into absurdist concept. And he's one of the most happy men in Japan. But no one really knows his name. You have to be somewhat clued up on the manga industry on the whole to know who he is. Your average anime-only watcher is gonna have no idea who the hell Junji Ito is. That's the reality we face when we create. Sometimes, you have to be long dead and gone to be seen as the creative genius you are. a strangely unfulfilling life for those who only want to be seen. And I think that's what Fujimoto-sensei wanted to say with this work. That he understands how important what he does is, but sometimes wishes he could take a full step back with no repercussions for doing so. The manga world is notorious for having artists work themselves to sickness, and only take time off when true tragedy strikes. I mean, as we see in Look Back, and I think this is Fujimoto-sensei's way of coping with that bitter reality. And it's heartbreaking that it will probably never change. I mean, just this month alone, both One Piece and Frieren had to go on one very brief and one prolonged hiatus due to the health of the two creators. It's incredibly sad. Unfortunately, the Japanese have the approach of keeping the status quo in almost every aspect of their life. So, issues like this will simply never change, and they become accepted fact. No matter how many mangakas work themselves to an early grave, that's just the price you may have to pay for the business. It's incredibly depressing. But we can see what the man himself has to say. He hasn't done too many interviews regarding the pieces that I found, but these snippets, I think, do tell us a lot about Fujimoto's thought process, and I'm going to leave them up on screen while I continue to talk so you can read through them. But I think they're incredibly eye-opening about the man himself. This shows just how much of himself Fujimoto-sensei puts into his work. The fact that as he was writing this incredibly difficult character to get on with, he realized that it was beginning to mirror himself. Man, I just want to give this guy a hug. He seems so genuine and sweet and thoughtful. Him and Oda-sensei, the pair of them, they just seem so interesting and unique and very, very sweet and very nice, and I just adore the pair. They seem brilliant. I think you can see that his creations are so deeply personal, and that this book is truly his love and hatred for his job boiled down to their absolute essence and funneled into a piece of work, and it's possibly one of my all-time favorite one-shots for that exact reason. There is no ending. No one gets a happy and comforting ending, or the ending that they want, because that's life. It has to go on regardless of what happens to you, and you just kind of have to lump it and move on. And I think that's something that Fujimoto-sensei is acutely aware of. Oh, and there are some brilliant nods to Fujimoto's other work, and just the whole of anime in general. I mean, Shonen Jump makes an appearance. One Piece is obviously on the front because, I mean, I'm pretty sure it's one of his biggest inspirations. Shueisha, just straight up in it. Shueisha just straight up show up in the film. Chainsaw Man and Fire Punch both getting indirect nods in many, many places. Not the least of which, you can see that Shark Kick is very clearly a joke. It's a joke on his other creation, Fire Fist. And all of the cover art for Shark Kick, it's just all Chainsaw Man. If you look closely, you could see Aki, you could see Power on the covers. The cover of the first Shark Kick is the cover of the first Chainsaw Man. It's very, very funny. Fujimoto manages to show his more goofy, jokey side, even in a piece as serious and painful as this. That's what I mean when it's also a love letter to what he gets to do. I mean, he said it himself in that interview. He loves that he gets to draw and contribute to society. Even, by the way, the painting that Kyomoto is working on at university, it's the door from Denji's nightmares in Chainsaw Man. You know, I'm realizing that doors play a pretty hefty role in a lot of Fujimoto's work. Regardless of the piece, there is almost always a very, very major door that the main character will have to open eventually, and almost every time it results in pain and heartbreak. Ultimately, this book is amazing, and the movie just adds to it. All the little details, like actually being able to see Fujimoto's manga come to life, because when I just read it, I was like, oh, I guess it's kind of funny. But like when it was animated, it got an audible chuckle out of me, because I'm like, oh, actually that's very funny. I'm just stupid. It brings the whole thing just to life. The brilliant use of color, always showing a very, very severe contrast between the two girls. They're always wearing complementing colors, but starkly different ends of the color spectrum. Even the montage of them hanging out is really amplified by actually being able to see them interact. It doesn't track particularly well in the manga. This movie truly made me feel a way that a lot of anime has failed to. This movie moved me. And man, it hit me in the soul, and it delivered critical damage to the emotional life points. I was doing the grown man weep at the end of it. Them tears were rolling, and I was just stone faced. It got me good. And with that, I'm gonna end the video here. If you haven't yet, go and check it out. Either check out the movie or just pick up the book. It's so well done, from subject matter to art. It hits on every single cylinder, and it just leaves you truly a different person to when you started it. So please seek this out. The movie's on Amazon Prime, at least it is here in the UK. I don't know if it is in America. It might be in America. But check out Amazon Prime. If not, it'll be somewhere. You'll be able to find it. Like, go and watch or read this, please. If you enjoyed me rambling as long as I have, please consider subscribing and hitting the like button, as well as sharing this video with anyone you know that loves weird commentary channels with a flappy-mouthed idiot at the helm, who, by the way, forgot to use the correct PNG for my Pngtuber thingy. So if you're wondering why it just keeps going dark when I'm not talking, I have the settings wrong, and I've recorded all this, and I don't know how to feed the audio back through the PNG program to get it to re-record it, so to speak. So yeah, we're just gonna have to roll with these punches and just keep it going. I'm not particularly happy about this one. Don't forget to tell your friends, tell your family, tell a stranger on a train that this is where you'll find the funky freshest of very dumb content. YouTube is about to be showing you two separate videos. One is my previous anime video. The other is a video that it thinks you might enjoy. Please consider giving the pair a watch. And wherever you are in the world, I hope you are having a sugoi, morning, afternoon, or evening, or generally one hell of a day. And I will see you in the next video. Sayonara. Bye-bye.